Hey there, this is a recap of session 38 of my Castles and Crusades campaign. This is the return of the Barry and Lork show, so if you followed any of the other recap videos, you go way back. It would be of last summer. We did quite a few sessions, I think, of my son and my buddy Dave getting to play their characters in kind of side games, but they tie into the overall campaign, so call it the Barry and Lork show. This is post, obviously, the last session. They've returned to Arden, Iredale Stronghold, and they are both Chieftain Connell Mormack's hall, giving a report of what they found out about the ruined town of Highhold and the survivors and stuff, which they do. They give that report. One of the things that comes out of that meeting is Lork is tasked by the chieftain. If you haven't seen the other videos in the past, Lork is the chieftain's shield man. He's his second. So if somebody came and challenged the chieftain, Lork would be the one to fight him. Although Connell is a bit crazy, the chieftain's got a little crazy side to him. So he's quite possible he would fight him anyway, but that would be his job. He's also, tasked with doing a bunch of other things. He's, the leader of the Wolves of Arden, which are like the elite fighters of the Arden's community. But Connell gives him another task, and it is basically to, with everything that's going on in the campaign, we're coming up on around a year or more of campaign time. Real time, the campaign's coming up on 2 years of play. They've faced various threats. Like they've had the Cult of Meldeth, they've had the bugbears and the goblins and some other stuff going on. And Connell's really, his concern is he wants to secure what, they're expanding. Arden's has expanded. Like they've crossed the Darrow Vale, and now they have Iredale Stronghold. So he's creating a region for himself to rule, and he wants that to have a piece, a safe rule for the people that follow him. So he is tasking Lork to root out threats against Arden, and basically giving him free reign to go do what he wants. He's not tied into being in and around Arden or Iredale Stronghold. He's tasked with the ability to go and root out these threats and take care of them. So that happens. They have a chat with him about future plans and security and safety, and Barry's trying to work some deals with some shipping stuff with his Fireball Freight business that he's starting on the side. And but he tells him that he has things. Barry's like, I have things that I want to accomplish, and when I come back, I'm more than happy to try to help as well and be more of a part of it. And we've Dave and I have talked. He wants Barry to be more prominent in the town, and he already is. Like they really are. Like the levels they're at, what they've done in the campaign so far in this area, they're actually fairly well regarded. They've done some important things. And Connell's in favor of all that. So Barry has this idea. He is. This has been actually a thing that has been masterfully role played by my friend Dave. The death of Brea, his henchman, that has had a very profound effect on Barry. And Barry does not want to be. It's one thing, he doesn't want to be responsible for someone under his charge dying. It's one thing for the other party members, they agree, they're all kind of in it together. But when he hires somebody, he feels very responsible for them. And with Brea's death, that really affected his character. So he doesn't want to hire. He doesn't want hirelings. He knows that he would be better off with hirelings and safer and be able to accomplish more. But he just doesn't want that responsibility. He doesn't want that to happen again. That bothered him. So he wants a construct. And in my setting, in this setting, my homebrew setting, about 2,000 years ago, there was this age where the wizards kind of ruled. And when they did so, they did so with constructs. They thought like man was the biggest threat to them, so they ruled through, they used constructs almost exclusively for everything from defensive measures to mundane tasks. So Barry doesn't want to go quite back to that, but he wants a construct, because like if it gets broken, he'll just fix it, and no harm, no foul, and he doesn't have that on his conscience of somebody dying under his charge. So he wants to track down this gnome that he learned about a while back, Aliston Ningle, that was part of the Hilldale gnome tribe where Tula's from, and his character Clan is from. And the story with him, we went over it, I think, a long time ago, but he was a kind of a tinkerer gnome, obviously, and an inventor, and he used constructs, and he's one of the more foremost guys of this era, in this region anyway, that used constructs. But he was something was a little off with him. He made a little crazy, or his constructs ended up killing people in Hilldale, and he was banished. And the last they knew about him is he went north to a small Dwarven stronghold called Balthordum. And this happened prior to the Dragon Wars. So the Dragon Wars was about 150 years ago in the setting timeline. So this happened before then. So that's the only lead Barry has. And so he's recruited Lork to help him. And Tula is more than happy to go with him as well. So they gear up, spend the night in Scrandon Hall, of course, planning and reveling and drinking, and then they leave in the morning. They make a stop. They visit, Lork visits grandmother, who's Sprawl and Agrax's grandmother, and picks up some potions of healing and stuff like that, because that's kind of what she does. And they eventually leave to head west. One of the other things that came up in the session was that Barry, for a while now, has been studying the language of Draconic to try to learn it. And we made some rolls. I'd actually found some rules for it in the Castle Keeper's Guide. That book is chock full of optional rules. It's a really good book. If you're looking at Castles and Crusades, you don't need it to run the game, but it's a really good book. So anyway, he made some rolls, and he now is fluent. As a matter of fact, I think he rolled a natural 20. So he is fluent in Draconic now. He now speaks that language, reads, writes it, fully understands it. Lork, before they left, he talks to his mentor, Seamus, and tells him where he's going. And Seamus tells him that he hasn't spent a lot of time in that region, but he knows that the forest, that the Balthordum is located in a valley, a forested valley. And that forest is like the southern tip of a forest called the Dread Hollow. And it was, and he warns him of that. Like, he's like, it's a dangerous place. You got to be careful there. It was part of Balthordum was part of another stronghold. It's actually like a southern outpost for a larger Dwarven stronghold called Kragangar. And that fell to demons back around the Dragon Wars during that time. The Dragon Wars is a pretty pivotal, it's the most pivotal thing that's happened in the setting within the last 2 centuries. So it gets referenced quite a bit. They make time. They load up the cars. Barry's crew, they got the things. They actually have upgraded to horses. He lost a couple oxen to the Boulay on the way to Highhold, so he's now plenty of money. He is upgraded to horses. So they head west. The thing they note, they haven't been to the mining town in quite a while. And one of the things they note is how well the road is. Like, the campaign started with them heading out on this road and going to an old church of Matrona, which is one of the gods of this region. And at that time, nobody used that road. Nobody. Like, it was just overrun. Now it's well maintained. There's actually 2 different rest stops for wagons and stuff to pull into and camp for the night, because it's a few days journey by wagon to get to the mining town from Arden to the mining town. So they're and it's patrolled. There's they meet wolves of Arden on patrol that are making sure that road is kept safe. They reach the mining town without incident. They find that it has greatly expanded since the last time that they were there. There's a bridge over the Inbis River. because the mining town is split in half by the Indus River, which runs out of the Blackbird Mountains. And they, there's a bridge. Wiggins Ale Tent is now Wiggins Tavern. It's no longer like a makeshift building. It's a tavern. It even has a couple rooms in the back that they can rent out to visitors, which they actually use. While they're there, it's a mining town. They meet up with Durgan Ironhelm, who is the dwarf that they rescued from the Goblin King. And he is much better than he was the last time we saw him. His beard's regrown. He's no longer rail thin and frail anymore. He's a dwarf, you know. He's a hardy dwarf again, and he is quite excited to see Lork and Barry. They have many rounds of drinks at Wiggins Ale Tent, all paid for by Durgan, who also pays for their lodging. He is quite indebted to them. They obviously saved his life. He spent 30 years as a prisoner of the Goblin King. So he is indebted to them, and he treats them well. I think he might give them a little bit of info about Balthordum, although he had never been there, and he only knew about it through Dwarven lore. Maybe he didn't give them as much. But they spend the night there, and then the next day they head off, like northwest, and they cut through the northern Helmwood forest, and eventually, after a few days, they arrive at the gnome village of Hilldale, which is Tula's hometown and Clan. And they're well received there as well. Like it's been, I think we figured it out. It's been almost a year in game time since Tula and Clan left Hilldale and came to Arden. So people, you know, the gnomes it's a gnome village. They're really excited to see her, and they end up spending a night there at the inn. And it was fun. They got to role play some stuff. Barry really enjoyed the food, and the food was really good, and the gnomish ale was good, sweeter than he was used to, but he drank to excess, which was fun because he in the end there was they met up with a friend of Tula's, which is this other gnome named Bixie Tomebinder, and she's kind of like the town librarian and scribe. And there was an older gnome there, and Barry was telling all these stories, and he was quite intoxicated, and it was very well role-played by my buddy Dave. And he's telling stories and magic and all this stuff, and Lork notices this old gnome like sitting in the corner. Older gnome, he's not super old, but he's older. And he's just kind of like grumbling and mumbling under his breath about Barry. And it's obvious he's not impressed. And but the night passes uneventfully. The next morning, they get ready to leave. They see Tula. She is on her way to the wagon, but she's talking to that old gnome. And come to find out, Lork goes over to see what's up. And come to find out, that's actually Clan. Is mentor. And Clan, if you didn't see a previous video, is a secondary character that Dave ran for a few sessions. And then he went back to running Barry, and he's been running Barry ever since. But that's his mentor. And he talks to Tula about, hey, you know, have him, I haven't heard from him in a long time, Clan. Have him contact me when you see him. I'd like to hear how he's doing, and, you know, if you return and visit at some point, and which she promises to do. The wagon crew informs them that they've been talking to different people in town. They're not going to be able to drive the wagon to Balthordum. It's just not going to happen. That road hasn't been used in a long time, 150 years. Like, nobody goes up there, really. So they make arrangements to meet back, because it's a couple weeks by foot for them to get to Balthordum, they estimate. While they were at the inn the night before, Tula produced a bunch of maps, and I think she might have done that at Scranton Hall too, but she had a bunch of old maps and such, which comes into play later. So they make arrangements for the wagon crew to return in about a month to pick them up. And Barry, always working some sort of angle, is trying to get them to like maybe work on like a trade deal with goods, like they could bring goods from the gnome village to Arden, and then Arden, when they come back, to bring a load. So that's all stuff we'll work on between scenes, but it's a side interest that Barry has. It's really, it's kind of interesting. It's nothing we spend a lot of time on, but it's neat that he has, I think, more ideas than just, you know, focusing on the next threat. Like, there's other stuff going on in his world that he's trying to do. So they depart on foot, the three of them, Barry, Lork, and Tula. They eventually, this country is, once they get outside of the curtilage of Hilldale, it's wildlands. Like, nobody's really been out here in a long time. Civilized people have not been out here in a long time, so it's wild country. Lork had never been to this. He's traveled the Hummel quite a bit and other regions in this area, more to the east. So nobody here is familiar with it. So they're using Tula's maps. And at night, this was kind of a neat scene that came out. Like, Tula has the map. Lork has kind of made her the cartographer. He can, you know, he'll pick out landmarks and stuff like that, and then he has her add those to the maps. And she is very artistic, you know, she's a bard, and she's making this map, and it's actually becoming quite an artistic affair, and I described that to the players, and you know, I think we went back a little bit forth on embellishing, and it was really cool, and kind of helped, you know, I think little things like that help, like, bring that NPC Tula a little bit more to life too. So which is great. So she has this artistic map that she's constantly updating during their journey. They're a few days out, and they come across tracks. Lork finds tracks, and they're ogre and giant. And he also recognizes a smaller track belonging to a halfling. And so they're relatively fresh, like within a day. And it seems like the ogres and giant are tracking the halfling, and he's trying to make distance. Obviously, he's not going to outpace him because he's a halfling. So they're like, well, we need to catch up. So they start hustling, and they eventually hear the sounds of battle, and they catch up. They come up over the rise, and in this small gully, they see an ogre, but he's down on the ground. He's got several arrows in him. And then there's a hill giant. And in front of the hill giant, on a rock rise on the other side of this gully, is a halfling. And he's shooting a bow at the hill giant. Lork rushes in, and they make quick work of this hill giant. Like, hill giants are not much of a threat to Lork. His favorite enemy is giant. He has a giant bane sword, and then you got Barry with his magical support. They make really short work of this giant. I didn't even have terrain for it. It was just, we did it theater of mind. I don't even think it lasted a couple rounds, maybe 2 rounds of combat. They finish it, and they start talking to this halfling who introduces himself as Trotter Willowspeak, and he, you know, they start talking to him, and he tells them that, you know, he's traveled from the south. He left his companions down in the city of Carlisle, which is the capital of Bernalia, which is the country that the campaign is set in currently. But he tells them he's actually not from this area. He's from a community called Lakeshire, which is on the other side of, it's on the furthest part of the west coast of the continent of Adon, and it actually, that area was where a lot of my previous campaign took place. They never went to Lakeshire in that campaign, but it was a big halfling human community in that area. And he's from there. But he, as a young halfling, he has wanderlust, basically, and he got on a ship and sailed east and wound up over here. And he's been an explorer ever since. And he has come this far north to try to find the lost elven kingdom of called Tula Thadan, and he's trying to find that. Barry and Lork have no idea where it is, but that was kind of, I think, interesting for them. One of the things is that interests Lork is because his sword, his giant bane sword, belonged to the once king of Tula Thadan, and it was made by the dwarves many centuries ago, when there was a giant invasion in threatening Tula, and the Elf King went to the dwarves at that time at Helgrim Hall and asked them to make a blade from the Starforge that they have, and then he made this giant bane sword, which the king used to quell this giant invasion. So there's a connection there. They tell Trotter that they are headed to try to find Balthordum, and they agree to travel together. So they spend some more time on the road. Oh, one of the things that happened too, let me back up a little bit, is during this travel, they have to camp. And one of the rules I brought in, I've been playing, actually myself and Dave and my son, Bryson, we've all been playing the Pathfinder Kingmaker computer RPG game, which is an excellent game. And one of the things they have in that game is they have these recipes that you can find, and there's tons of them. And if you successfully use the recipe when you're camping, there's different ones. Those different recipes give you different benefits. So that was a really neat rule, and it makes camping a little bit more interesting. So I've started incorporating those, and Barry has one. I've given him one recipe, and it's I think it's grilled silver eel, and yep, and he makes that, and what that does is that increases everybody that eats it. It increases their base movement by 10 feet for 24 hours. So just a little perk there. We like the recipe stuff. I'm interested to see how it plays out. So they travel several days more with Trotter, and eventually they come to the northern tip of the Brackbur mountain range, and they look down and they see this valley, this forested valley, but that's where they think this Balthordum is located. So they head down into the valley. Once they get to the tree line, Lork is able to navigate, and he finds an old road, an old overgrown road through this forest. And it leads into some ruins, which is what you see before you. In this hill area here, they came in from that side. This hill area here is where the entrance to the Dwarven stronghold was. And for the Dwarven stronghold, I didn't really have any terrain for it. But what I did do is I took I found an image online from Skyrim that showed like one of the small Dwarven stronghold thing. I don't even know which one it was, but I took that, and that's what I used to show, which was good because it's a good reference, because I like Skyrim's a great game. Everybody that plays, that was playing, my son and Dave, huge Skyrim fans. So it was kind of that connection, and it helped visualize what they could see. So they come into this ruin, and these are some old Dwarven ruins, and they're attacked by a Vrock, which is if you're not familiar, it's a demon, and it's like a big vulture demon. And I use this miniature. This is an old, get that to focus, come on, there we go. It's an old D&D miniature Vrock, but they're pretty nasty in Castle Crusades. They have some spell abilities which he uses. I used the first spell that was cast, I think it was the first one, was Chain Lightning, which should have been awesome, but my dice were completely traitorous, and I rolled absolute garbage. It's like a 6th level spell in Castle Crusades, and I don't even think I did double digits worth of damage. It was completely awful. So that was less than impressive on my end. Party was, they weren't upset, but I was. Wanted to do a little bit of damage with it. He did some other stuff. The next thing that he did, though, is he used his Screech, which is basically power word stun. And there's no saving throw for that. And depending on how many hit points you have is how long it lasts. And he focused that on Lork. And Lork was basically out for the rest of the combat. He was stunned, I think, for like 5 rounds. Thankfully, there was other people there. So like Trotter, Tula, and Barry, Fenris, all attacked. So it didn't just turn its attention on Lork, because that would have been the end of him, because he would have chewed right through him, because there's not much you can do when you're stunned. So he started attacking other people. It was a pretty good fight. Trotter took some damage. I don't know if it cast another spell or not. I don't remember if it did or not. I don't think so. I think it went into like its melee, just its bite and claw attacks. They eventually beat it though. And with that, they start searching, you know, these ruins. They end up finding in this ruin over here. Let's see if I can show it to you guys. This ruin here, there's this deep well. They find that, and Lork tosses, well, he goes to toss a copper coin, and Barry, being the tightwad that he is like, hold on, and grabs a rock and throws it down in there. And it wasn't a big rock, but they don't hear it hit. So that, wherever that goes, it's pretty deep. They are like, well, we're not going in there. There was some debate about casting fly, and Barry was like, I'm not flying down there. And he's like, I can cast it on you, Lork, and you can fly down there. And I think Lork might have done it, but they decided not to do that. They did find in that ruin a bag of gems, which was had some nice, pretty decent gems in it. So it was a good little haul of loot, because they didn't get anything off the giants. The giant and the ogre, they didn't really have anything on them. Maybe in their cave or anything like that, but they didn't get anything from that encounter. But this one, they made out pretty good with some gems. And that's where we ended the session. And the next session, they're going to go into the ruins and try to find out what they can find about if they can locate this Aliston Ningle, the gnome, or see what this stronghold's all about. But yeah, that's where we ended. I'm hoping our next group session with everybody that can make it is not until the end of next month. And I kind of purposely did that because I wanted to do this. I know my buddy Dave, he wanted to play this out, and I didn't want to have it be a one and done thing. We're getting back to the model of the West Marches, which is what the campaign has been based around. So sessions they're connected, but they're self-contained for the most part. And I knew this was going to be a little too big to do that the way I would have liked to do it. So I set the next group session later in the month, and I'm going to plan to run maybe probably 2 more sessions of this before they return to Arden. Who knows? It could go 1 session. They could get killed in the next session. I don't know. But it may go longer than that. But I have enough room to play around with that, which is good. So we can have some fun with it. But yeah, that's the recap for session 38. And just a quick thing on the terrain. You guys have seen the boards a million times. They get a ton of use in my games. The Ruins is all stuff I made from Hearst Arts. Great company. They make molds, silicone molds, and you cast the stones. And this is actually from, I'm missing a piece of this, and there's other pieces that go with this. I just needed this piece. There's a top for this. It broke a while ago, and I haven't fixed it yet. But this is from a blueprint right off their website. This thing over here was just something I made one day from pieces that I had cast. I didn't have a blueprint or anything. It was just I was trying to make something, make a ruin without having to cast any more pieces at that time. So that was what I did. And this other stuff you've seen a million times. It's all stuff I made or upgraded, the trees and stuff. But yeah, that's it. And so there'll be another review up pretty quick because I don't know if we're going to play next week. Maybe we'll play next week. If not, it'll definitely be the week after. So I'm going to try to get something. I'm going to try to get the next part together so we can play next week, which has been pretty fun. So I want to keep the ball rolling. But yeah, that's the review. Any questions, comments, fire them away. Love to see it. And thanks for watching.